Hello everyone, welcome back to Make the Music, and today we're going to be doing another production tutorial. We're going to be going over how to effectively layer the production in your pop, indie rock tracks so that you get a big, powerful drum sound but doesn't feel overwhelming or cluttered. There's just the right amount of layers to make it feel big, to make it serve the song, but like I said, not feel like it's too overwhelming or too overproduced. There's still a natural, raw feel to it. And that's what I want to go over here in this video. I have a free guide called the Home Studio Toolbox. You can find that in the description box, 100% free. Also, you'll get access to all the multi-tracks that I've done for some of my song match sessions, so you can go through those as well. So all that free material can be gained. If you go to the description box, just tell us where to send that link. Anyways, let's get into this video here. So I have a bunch of drum layers, right? And you heard in that playthrough when I just had the drum kit playing what it sounded like in the production, and then when I added all of these additional layers in and what the difference was. And it was pretty stark. It was pretty big difference. The production felt so much more fuller, had so much more attack, and really felt finished or pro as opposed to an amateur sounding production. So I'm going to take you through all those layers here. So in this track, I'll do another quick playthrough for 5 seconds so you can hear what I've got going on. Okay, a lot of stuff going on. The number one key, I think, is step one when you're adding all these different layers is subtlety. You don't want to go over the top with every single layer that you're adding to your percussion. A lot of times I see engineers or mixers or people who don't have a lot of experience with production is they add tons and tons of layers, they make it all the same volume, they don't do any panning, and it just sounds like one big giant mess because there's no balance between them. The key is subtlety and the correct amount of balance and the correct kind of layers to make it fill out the production here. So I did start with a bass line of a drum kit. I'm going to be using Easy Drummer 3 in this case. This is just one of the stock kits. This is the Easy Drummer 3 Bright Room, and I have the classic reverb preset. I wanted it really roomy sounding, so what I did is I went down to some of the overhead pieces and ambience and I turned them up way super loud. So I'll solo what the kit sounds like here. And then I just selected the kick and snare sounds that I like. I don't think I even added any tuning to that. So that's the raw kit sound, right? But that's not going to be enough to get this production to sound full in this sort of indie pop rock setting, right? So I do have that Easy Drummer 3 kit, and I played it for you when I muted all my additional layers, and it sounds fine, but it doesn't sound finished, right? Okay, so that sounds fine, but it needed additional layers. So let's go down through all the layers that I added. I added some kick layers. So I have this additional kick sample, and it's playing on some of the beats here. It sounds like this. It just added some mid punch to the kit, so I'll add that in slowly here. I added on some different beats that the rock kick drum wasn't hitting on, and it just gave it a nice rhythmic flow. Then I added another kind of kick here, and this is a very boomy, roomy kick. It sounds almost overblown. That's why I've tucked down the volume. All right, so that sounds like a massive kick. I didn't want to overwhelm the drum sound and get to sound too sampled or too overproduced, so I just put that kick on the one. So it feels like the one of every bar sounds a little bit bigger, which is kind of a nice feature. So now the one of every bar, right, sounds a bit bigger. I think that's really good for the downbeats to have a bit of power. Then I added an extra snare sample. That sounds like this. Actually, it's more like a clap. That's a dry clap. Then I added 2 other claps. Then I added some reverb to them. So this is just a kilohertz reverb. It comes with the Slate monthly subscription, right? And I just did a stock reverb on, added a bit of size, and it sounds pretty good. The key with claps sounding realistic in a sort of pop rock production setting is making sure you have quite a few different clap samples. It sounds better than just one clap sample, which would sound more like a standard pop approach. But this sounds like an actual group of people clapping together, which that would be optimal if you could get a bunch of people to clap together. But I understand not everyone in a home studio environment can achieve that or get the correct sound. So that sounds pretty good to me. So now my pieces sound like this. So we're getting close. It sounds pretty good. What I also added to it was this snap sample here, and that's coming in some of these in-between beats. So it's going dun, 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 and you can hear the snap in between. Right, so just coming in between some of the beats there. Then I added some loops, and this is really kind of the key to take it from this is sounding really good to really fleshed out and incredible and having some great rhythmic feel. So this sample here, I believe, is a hi-hat sample. I panned this all the way to the right. It's sort of like a hat / tambourine sample, right? And the key with some of these loops, when you've got stereo loops like this, is not panning everything up the middle. You want to add some things on the right and things on the left to create some form of a stereo field and some width. So like I have this on the right, then I have something else on the left here. This is a shaker sample, right? So together, I've done another video on this, how to actually get stereo width in your mixes. It's not necessarily about adding stereo width plugins or anything like that. It's actually creating separate elements on the right and the left so that the listener can distinguish between the two. So when you have a hat or a tambourine and a shaker on different sides of the track, immediately it stands out to the listener because they sound different. It's kind of an illusionary thing as opposed to a straight up processing thing. So immediately that's going to add width to your drum sound. But like I said, these are very subtle. Look how quiet these are. -22, -19. I'm not trying to overpower the track with these. They're just subtle layers on the side. Then I do have a loop up the middle. Sometimes just for some added chaos, I like to add some sort of loop like this right up the center. Again, very subtle in the mix. And like I said, you don't want this too loud to where it's distracting to the listener. But that's an extra layer, and I added that in chorus 3. And the last thing I added, I've gone over some of this before, but I have a reverse crash heading into a crash. It's a crash in addition to the kick crash, and it just adds a little bit of power on these ones of the chorus. If you don't know how to add a reverse crash with a standard crash, you just take this crash here. In Reaper, you go to Item Properties, and then you scroll to Reverse, and it'll reverse the track for you, and now you have a reverse crash. So that's what I did here. I just reversed it, and then I glued the items together to create that sound. So now the whole drum sound is sounding like this. Let me solo it. It's sounding massive. And then my last tip here would be in your production of this song, make sure that you're strategic about how you add these layers. I don't have every layer going for every part of the song, right? Even in chorus 1, it's missing some of the additional claps. It's missing some of the additional loops here. It still sounds big. It still sounds impactful. It's not like chorus 1 is going to be so much less big sounding than the chorus is coming. But you want to add a build to the song. You want the song to feel like it's getting bigger and bigger as you go along. In verse 2, I don't have all the layers going. It has a different drum pattern going. And also, I'm not having the shaker sample going. But by the time we get to chorus 3, I have all the layers going, and so the track's going to sound super epic at the end. And with full context, it sounds like this. So that's my tips for getting a big sounding drum production in your indie pop, indie rock songs. Really, it's about strategic layering, making sure you're doing it subtly, adding in the correct layers, and then making sure you're building the track as you go along, not just putting all your layers in at once. I've had other videos about arranging songs, but making sure that it builds to a final powerful chorus. So I hope that was helpful. In a comment down below, how do you layer your tracks in your pop or any productions? How many layers do you use? What kind of layers do you like to use? I'd like to hear what you're doing in your tracks. I hope you found this helpful. And anyways, I'll see you guys next time.